The snow fell like a quiet confession, soft and relentless, covering the city in a white silence that made even the busiest streets feel abandoned. On Christmas Eve, when laughter usually spilled from warm windows and families hurried home with wrapped gifts and red cheeks, one man sat alone at a small outdoor cafe table, staring into a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. He had everything the world praises: power, wealth, success, but not a single soul waiting for him tonight. And in that still, aching moment, he realized something terrifying. He had never felt more invisible in his entire life. Before the story unfolds further, take a second. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that even the coldest hearts can find warmth again, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The man was Ethan Kross, a name that dominated business magazines and financial headlines. CEO of a global tech empire, youngest on multiple rich lists, admired for his discipline and feared for his decisiveness. Yet none of that mattered tonight. Christmas had always been just another date on his calendar, another meeting with loneliness he pretended not to notice. Years earlier, ambition had demanded sacrifices, and Ethan had paid without hesitation. Relationships faded, friendships dissolved, and family dinners became missed calls and unread messages. By the time he reached the top, there was no one left to celebrate with. The city around him glowed with festive lights, but Ethan felt detached, like he was watching life through glass. Couples walked hand in hand, children laughed while dragging parents toward toy shop windows, and carols drifted faintly through the air. Each sound cut deeper than silence ever could. He told himself this was the price of greatness, that solitude was the companion of success. Yet the truth pressed heavily on his chest. Success felt hollow when there was no one to share it with. Ethan had chosen the cafe not for comfort, but because it was the only place still open near his penthouse. He wanted noise, movement, something to remind him the world was alive. But instead, the chair across from him remained empty, mocking him with its quiet presence. Snow gathered on the table, untouched, as if even nature respected his isolation. That was when he noticed her. A small figure stood just a few steps away, bundled in an oversized coat, clutching a worn teddy bear whose fur had thinned with love. She couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old. Her cheeks were rosy from the cold, her boots slightly too big, and her eyes wide with a curiosity untouched by the harshness of the world. She looked at Ethan not with fear or hesitation, but with a gentle interest that felt almost unsettling. Ethan wasn't used to being looked at that way. People usually saw his title before they saw his face. But this child saw only a man sitting alone. He expected her to walk past. Instead, she lingered, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, as if gathering courage. Snowflakes landed on her hair, melting instantly. Ethan felt a strange pull, an instinct he didn't recognize. Something about her presence disrupted the carefully constructed walls around his heart. The girl glanced at his untouched coffee, then at his face, noticing the tired lines etched deeper than his age suggested. There was no judgment in her gaze, only concern. And in that moment, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Seen. The child's presence stirred memories he had buried long ago. Christmas mornings when his mother's laughter filled the house, when his father lifted him onto his shoulders to reach the star atop the tree. Those memories had faded as life hardened him, replaced by boardrooms and balance sheets. He had convinced himself he didn't need them. Yet now, they resurfaced with painful clarity. Ethan realized how far he had drifted from the person he once was. The boy who believed kindness mattered. The boy who thought success meant happiness shared, not hoarded. Somewhere along the way, he had traded warmth for control, connection for achievement. The cold seeped through his coat, but he barely noticed. His eyes followed the girl as she shuffled closer, her teddy bear held tightly like a shield against the world. She radiated a quiet bravery that humbled him. Whatever fear or sadness lived inside him seemed small compared to the courage it took for a child to approach a stranger on a snowy night. Time slowed. The city noise softened. Ethan felt as if this encounter existed outside reality, suspended in the glow of Christmas lights and falling snow. He didn't know why this moment mattered, only that it did. In that instant, the weight he carried began to shift. It wasn't gone, but it felt lighter, as if someone had loosened a knot he didn't realize was choking him. He found himself sitting straighter, breathing deeper, feeling present in a way he hadn't in years. The little girl smiled, a simple, open expression that held no expectations. It was the kind of smile given freely, without conditions. Ethan felt his throat tighten. When was the last time someone smiled at him without wanting something in return? The answer unsettled him. He couldn't remember. As the girl turned toward the warmly lit street behind her, Ethan sensed that this brief encounter was about to pass. Yet something inside him resisted letting it end so quietly. He felt an unfamiliar urge to follow, to step out of the carefully controlled life he had built and into the unknown. His mind raced with reasons not to. He was busy. He was important. He didn't belong in moments like this. But those excuses felt thin now, fragile against the deeper truth pressing forward. For the first time in a long while, Ethan wanted something that couldn't be bought, scheduled, or optimized. He wanted connection. The snow thickened, blanketing the world anew, as if offering a fresh beginning. Ethan stood, leaving money on the table without checking the amount. The coffee remained untouched, but something else inside him had finally stirred. He followed at a distance, careful not to intrude, watching as the girl skipped ahead, occasionally glancing back with the certainty that he was there. That certainty shook him. No one had ever assumed his presence so naturally before. They walked through narrow streets lined with old buildings and flickering lights. The city here felt different, quieter, more real. Gone were the polished storefronts and luxury signs. This part of town wore its history openly, imperfections and all. Ethan realized how rarely he ventured into places that weren't designed for comfort or status. Eventually, they reached a modest apartment building. Its entrance was worn, but a small wreath hung crookedly on the door, defiant in its cheerfulness. Warm light spilled from a few windows, and laughter echoed faintly from somewhere inside. Ethan hesitated. Everything in his life had trained him to turn back now. This was unfamiliar territory, and unfamiliar things couldn't be controlled. But the emptiness he had felt earlier pushed him forward. Inside, the air was warm and smelled faintly of baked bread and pine. Decorations were simple but heartfelt, paper snowflakes taped to walls, a small Christmas tree decorated with mismatched ornaments, and handmade drawings scattered like treasures. It wasn't impressive by any worldly standard, yet it felt richer than any penthouse Ethan had ever owned. He felt out of place, towering among small furniture and narrow hallways. But instead of discomfort, he felt something close to peace. The noise, the warmth, the presence of others, it wrapped around him like a forgotten melody. Ethan observed quietly, absorbing the scene. There was no luxury here, no extravagance, yet joy existed in abundance. People smiled at each other without calculation. Children laughed without restraint. For the first time, Ethan understood what he had been missing. The evening unfolded gently. Time lost its sharp edges. Ethan found himself participating in simple traditions, helping arrange chairs, sharing food, listening to stories that didn't involve profits or projections. He felt awkward at first, unsure of his place, but no one questioned why he was there. He was simply included. That acceptance undid him. As the night deepened, Ethan reflected on the choices that had led him here. He saw clearly now how fear had driven him more than ambition. Fear of failure. Fear of vulnerability. Fear of needing others. In chasing success, he had built walls so high he couldn't see over them anymore. Yet one small act of courage from a child had cracked those walls open. the little girl moved through the room freely, her laughter bright and unburdened. She shared